Well, after today, we are at the penultimate chapter of the journey through Cologne this year. 2 weeks of constant Counter-Strike action has narrowed down the field to what is left today. 4 teams, 2 spots in a best-of-5 grand final in the middle of the greatest arena in Counter-Strike. Vitality taking on SAW, Mouz taking on NAVI. Could SAW continue the miracle run and overcome yet another titanic threat in ZywOo and Vitality? And on the other side, 2 teams who have already proven so much throughout this year, but are still so young, still so unproven in so many aspects, that it feels like they are still defining who they are in real time as we watch. Could NAVI establish themselves as the new world #1s? Could Mouz continue to defy the stage pressure surrounding them and continue to shine like they did yesterday against G2? Those are the questions that we have to ask today, and there's a lot to go over, so we're not going to waste any time. Before we get started, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out massively in the YouTube algorithm. Also, top link in the description. I did a 2-hour podcast with JesseTiv last night on Twitch. That's up on his YouTube channel now. If you want to hear me talk about IEM Cologne as well as content creation in the Counter-Strike space, go check it out. Regardless, go follow Josh. He streams a lot, and he also does a lot of casting in the Australian scene. So let's show him some love from my community. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the recap. Unfortunately, we have to start off with a return to reality. SAW have been one of the best upset teams in recent memory, because instead of the traditional upset where one player has this ridiculous out-of-band performance that propels their team forward, they won their series through incredible team Counter-Strike, great fundamentals, incredible poise on maps like Nuke, and the ability to weather the storm from some of the best teams in the world and answer back in kind. The unfortunate reality is that when they pull up to this series against Vitality, Vitality are on a different level right now. As a team, they are currently peaking. They're arguably the best T-side in the world right now. They're winning something ridiculous like over 70% of their T-side rounds at Cologne. And when you add on the pressure of their doing it sometimes with ZywOo only having normal performances, it makes the total firepower from Vitality seem unfair. And SAW did their best, but they just couldn't overcome these odds because Vitality left them no holes. It was 13-6 on Nuke. It was 13-5 on Dust 2. And Nuke was easily SAW's best chance. SAW have been the best Nuke team at this event. They have been other of the best Nuke teams in the world in a row coming into this series, so surely if there was going to be a chance, it would be here. And they open up on their T side, they get 5 rounds. They're looking good. They're trading rounds back and forth with Vitality. But as soon as we get into the second half, there was simply no stopping the Vitality freight train on T side. Not only did they win the last 4 CT rounds to close it out, they win the T-side pistol and win 4 more right after. A 9-round swing where Vitality shut the door on SAW and never let them back in the map. And it was a total equal performance from Vitality here. All of Spinks, ZywOo, Flames, and even Apex had their moments to shine. Mezzy was still a great anchor even though he had the fewest kills here. And unfortunately, there was just no defensive look that SAW could throw at this team that would make a difference. And to cap it off, it's Apex, the leader, getting his on the final round, and Ace to win the first map. Like, this is when Vitality are super dangerous, when Flames and Spinks are really getting activated with the rifles in their hands, when ZywOo is motivated and he's omping on the CT side. And then you add on that X factor of Apex just being able to rile the crowd up, really hype up everyone around him, and have those big moments where he turns back the clock. And that ace from Apex, I think, is in a way poetic, because obviously Mutiras, if you flash back to the game yesterday on FaZe, it was him who had the big play outside to win it for his team. So now SAW are on the receiving end of the captain sealing the deal. And unfortunately for SAW, they're already behind. They're down 1 map. Their map pick was Nuke. Now they have to go play Vitality on their map pick, which is Dust 2. And as I've said many times throughout this tournament, don't play the French on Dust 2. Because look what happens. Once again, SAW are unable to do anything. Vitality control this game from start to finish. It's a 10-2 opening T-half for Vitality. SAW can do nothing to stop the onslaught. And like, they get some get-me-over rounds in the second half. They get 3 rounds back to make the score look respectable. But make no mistake, all Vitality are doing is just waiting their time out to get the economy on track. And then it's just easy for them to close out the series. Saw got to this point by being immovable, stoic, not breaking easily. And in the semifinal, they ran into an unstoppable force named Vitality, and they really had no chance. Which, by the way, gotta say it again, doesn't take away from how great this run is. Saw, you guys did fantastic. I really think you guys can repeat a lot of what you did here and continue to surprise and impress going forward in your next tournament appearances. GG's to Vitality, and I don't think you guys have anything to be upset about with how you did here at Cologne. Now, thankfully, our next series had a lot more substance to bite into. Mouz versus NAVI. And here, I was really worried about the map veto going into this, because as we know and as we've talked about, currently NAVI aren't just the best Mirage team in the world, they are coming into this series 11-0 on the map, and even before that they had a ridiculously high win rate on it. Also, Mouz plays a lot of Mirage. In my opinion, I think Mouz should have been more willing to play around with the veto here and not allow Mirage to be played. Now here's the thing, that's definitely a difficult proposition because the way these map pools overlap, both of these teams love to play Dust 2, Nuke, and Mirage. They also both play a fair amount of Ancient, neither of them like to play Vertigo, and for Mouz, they usually prefer to permaban Anubis. But I do think there is a definite path where Mirage could have been the first ban for Mouz and everything would have worked out fine. I don't think you have to worry about NAVI doing a surprise pick Vertigo because they've literally never played it with this roster. And I mean legitimately never, not one map of Vertigo for over the last year. So there is no chance that NAVI are going to surprise pick Vertigo into you because you left it on the table. So I think that if Mouz first ban Mirage, they don't have to worry about getting punish picked on Vertigo. In fact, I think it's pretty likely that NAVI still remove it with their ban. From there, you have the option on the secondary ban to remove Anubis if you really don't want to play it still, or take another map away from NAVI like a Dust 2 or a Nuke, and the pick ban can play out from there in any number of combinations. My overarching point being, I don't see a world where it was the correct decision to allow NAVI to pick Mirage, because if you go down on Inferno, suddenly you're playing an extreme uphill battle against an undefeated team on Mirage before you even have to consider going to Ancient, which was the third map in this series. I think Mouz set themselves up where they had to win Inferno no matter what, just so they had the insurance of not having to worry about whether they lose Mirage or not. Which kind of makes things really awkward when on the first half of Inferno, NAVI kicks you in the teeth 9-3 on your T side. A weird running theme of this series, as we're going to see play out, is that every single side played in this series was a blowout. Either team won 8 or more rounds on their respective first and second halves in this series, which is bizarre because the team that gets blown out first was making the comeback on both Inferno and Mirage, which you just don't see that often. And it made it really difficult to know what Mouz were going to look like, because obviously losing that many rounds on Inferno, CT-sided it may be, is a really difficult thing to combat, especially because your players aren't activated, it's your first game of the day. Maybe the stage pressure is starting to get to you. Players like Torji or Xerxin haven't found the momentum that's like so key to their game. And tactically here, I think Mouz made quite a few errors on their T side. Normally, I'm very quick to praise Shuhei for his calling. I think he's very consistent and one of the best in-game leaders in the world. But here on Inferno, it was messy. I don't know why, but there was like a solid 4 or 5 round stretch where they insisted on going B and got destroyed going B every time. Like here on round 7, where it feels like this is a commit B strat right from the get-go for Mouz, they're going to run down a lot of time and try and bait out as much utility as they can from NAVI, but in the end of it, it's going to get down to around 40 seconds, and they're going to go for the execute, and they're just going to get meat grindered by JL and Alexi B. And the problem that I have here is that unlike other teams we've watched throughout this tournament, there's no like nuance or extra layer to this B side take. They don't have anyone who's lurking through A to catch rotators or start the early flank, or be able to catch a rotator and call for them to fall off B and go A. They're really hard committing to taking the B site, and when that 1A plan doesn't work, and Alexi B has saved all this late utility, there's no time for them to do anything else but push through the smokes, push into the crossfires, and they get eaten apart. And on the very next round, yeah, they're saving, so they're just trying to see if they can make anything work, but once again, they run down a bunch of clock, and they go into the late B hit, but there's so much counter utility left over from NAVI that it's a meat grinder. Once again, they're pushing through smokes. Even with the flash assist, it's just not ideal. They get picked apart once again. And you would think logically that like once bitten, twice shy, they wouldn't go for the third time, but no, they literally do the exact same thing on the very next round. They run over a minute of the clock down, get no valuable intel, no picks, no apartment lurk, No A presence whatsoever. 40 seconds left on the clock. They commit their utility. They go B. And it's not clean whatsoever. They allow JL and Alexi B to take 3 picks. JimFat barely manages to get the counter frags, and yeah, they get the site, they get the bomb down, but now it's a 3v5. You're in an awkward position. Navi's already collapsing in the rotate, and now you gotta try and make the miracle work. And JimFat, you know, he's on for the ace eventually, down into a 1v2, and he nearly gets it, but you're relying on hero plays. Like, why would you go B this many times in the row with no difference in the looks you gave Navi? Nothing. Navi were like expecting you guys to try and do something different, but you ran it down the same strat just so much that it just didn't work. And at this point, once again with Mirage lurking in the background, I'm already starting to think that this series might be over, because this Mouz, what they're showing so far, can't compete with this Navi at all. And then of course you blink and you miss it, and suddenly the score is back up to 8-11, and Mouz are looking like a completely different team on the CT side. That's just how this series went. It was super odd. But Mouz, the team play, way better. The coordination, way sharper. And then the individuals started to come online. JimFat was finding great impact from the pit. Torzy got the op in his hands, was able to start getting picks all over the place. The problem with playing from behind, obviously, is that you're only allowed so many mistakes. And unfortunately, they give one up and match point on round 20, just down to a really solid A execute from Navi. Now, if you watch the stream, you may be wondering what the hell happened with Shuhei there. And I believe what happened, I couldn't quite hear it myself. I believe whoever was in the apartments made a sound cue, and Shuhei reacted on instinct to the sound cue at the worst possible timing as Alexi B peeked from Boiler and started the A take. And with Shuhei going down in the lane exposed like that, the A side defense crumbles in short order, and it's going to come down to the 2 B players having to save and hold on to their money. A weird sequence, but I don't know if it necessarily matters, because Navi were in such a dominant position with 2 up Boiler, 1 going arch, and 2 in apartments, that even if Shuhei gets 1 and gets traded, the 2 apartment players likely take the pit player and site from there, because Shuhei is the only player on a site to actually hold off the push. It definitely still looks bad for Mouz in the moment, but I don't necessarily think that what happened to Shuhei would have made a difference in the outcome of the round. But okay, now Mouz, there's no more errors. You have to play perfect, and they do it. They bring it all the way back to 11-12, and now we're trying to go to overtime. And there's nothing special about this round other than the fact that Torzy is a monster. This first opening kill on Banana, from JL's perspective, looks unfair because he peeks for the barest second, a few frames at max, and that's all Torzy needs on the half wall with the op to take him out of the server and sit him down. And with Xerxen in the forward position, this is going to funnel Navi players into a desperate A hit. And unfortunately, the Mouz players are very well set up for this. They have the double stack inside site, they have JimFat in the pit, and of course the B players are rotating forthwith once they know that the take is on. And listen, Brolin gets 1 from the top box, JimFat gets a double in the pit, and then look who's coming around the curve. It's Torzy from B on the rotate, picks up 1 in the arch, swings around towards Boiler. Wonderful is 1 man alone trying to save the world against 5 Mouz players, and unfortunately he's not on for a Halzert today, and Torzy takes care of him in short order, and we're moving on to the overtime. And in the overtime, Mouz continued their great CT play, taking 2 of the 3 rounds and going up in lead for the first time in the map. The problem is, once they swap to the T side in the second half of overtime, you remember that their T side on Inferno so far has been terrible, and Navi lock it the fuck down and win all 3 second half rounds to reverse sweep the overtime and win the map. And this first round of the second half of overtime really encapsulates it all for Navi. They're going to start off with the early deep banana smoke that's going to seal off Mouz from taking banana control very early, which allows Alexi B to leave JL with the extra utility to hold banana solo so he can reinforce A. And so Mouz are looking for another path. They're creeping up mid, they're starting to look into the apartments. But here's where Navi's tactical setup is so brilliant, because they're not just aggressive in B, they're aggressive into the apartments. They're double stacked up, Wonderful watching the stairs, Bit watching the window. And I don't know how you predict this if you're Mouz, because this setup is just broken. Bit is so good that he's going to take this kill every single time he manages to get that pick. And Wonderful, even though he gets hit in the back of the head by Bit's grenade, he's clearly not concussed enough to not be able to do his job. He's going to fall back to the balcony, hold the corner, and hit a wrist snapper flick later on that's just going to really seal the deal that Navi are in full control. And after Wonderful gets this pick, Unfortunately, Mouz are in a position where they can't really rotate. They don't have enough utility to go back to B, so they have to commit to the A take, and the hold from NAVI is just too strong, which is a theme for their defense throughout this game, and that's why they go up in this series 1-0, and we're heading to the Thunderdome. We're going to Mirage. And once again, as I always encourage you guys, go watch the games if you haven't already. This game was so entertaining. It was incredible to watch play out. Mouz come out after taking that heartbreaking loss on Inferno and hand it right back to NAVI with their own 8-4 CT half. The one thing we're going to focus on, and the reason that Mouz ultimately are unable to win this game, is that while Mouz were great at the early rounds, they were good at controlling the map a lot of the time. The one thing they could not do here on Inferno and here on Mirage was win the clutches. And the clutches on both halves for NAVI are why they were in this game and why they were able to win it down the stretch. Like right here, where NAVI are just coming off of a save in round 11, they need to change the pace. They need to find some room where they can catch Mouz off guard. And after a timeout, Blade, the master tactician, comes up with a brilliant idea. Bit is probably one of the best pure aimers in the world, arguably the best mechanical aimer in this lobby. Bit, just go on to A and could you find some kills please? And of course Bit does. He finds an insane double kill seconds into the round that guts Mouz's defense. And in true clinical NAVI fashion, instead of collapsing onto the site thereafter, they waste the time, they constrict the map control, they force Mouz in uncomfortable positions so they can get the further picks around the margins and then collapse on the site late. Bit was the outlier, he was the X factor in that round to open it up, and then the NAVI vice slowly collapsed around Mouz's throat to get them that crucial third round. And on the next round, it's back to that classic slow NAVI play. They're going to work for over a minute, just spread out over the map, seeing what Mouz do, see if there's anything that they can work into a pick and start taking an advantage. And eventually, Wonderful is going to creep up the catwalk. He's going to find that first pick on Connector. But Shuhi and Zershin find back-to-back picks right after to answer back and keep the momentum in their favor. And as Wonderful is rotating back around to get the bomb and meet up with JL, JL's pushing out of A main. He's fighting with Shuhi. They're contesting for position. Shuhi drops into Sandwich and pushes the firebox to keep the fight against JL. He finds the pick. But that advantage gets cut because Bit finds Zershin in the connector, gaining back that map control and keeping it to a 2v3. And now it's on Bit and Wonderful. Bit coming in for the stairs, Wonderful coming through A main. They gotta find their way into the site. Bit with the molly towards Firebox is going to burn out Shuhi. Wonderful's going to push it from A main, but Bit gets found out by Torji on the top of the stairs, leaving Wonderful in a 1v2. And no pun intended, but he hits two wonderful shots to bring it home. And had Mouz won these two clutches, it would have been a 10-2 half. And considering how the rest of the game plays out, that would have meant Mouz would have won this and we would have gone to Ancient. And I have bad news, because while Mouz played really well throughout this game, I think down the stretch in the second half, they finally started to make some pretty serious mistakes. There's one round that stands out from the others as a clear lapse in judgment from this team in a way that I have not seen them make in quite a while, and I think it directly leads to NAVI being able to win. Round 20, Mouz are coming off of a win. NAVI are broke. They're bringing in two weapons from last round. They're able to buy up two more M4s, but unfortunately they are stuck with Alexi B on the MP9, and they don't nearly have as much utility as they would like. The problem is, if they lose this round, they have to save. So if Mouz win here, not only do they secure match point, they're pretty much guaranteed to win the map on the next round because they're going to be playing against pistols, MP9s at max. They have an insane advantage at that point, right? So, Mouz, an incredibly tactical team that loves to play slow, deliberate rounds where they work their utility control, work the map control, and then hit a site late. What do they do here? They go out mid, dry, with no smokes, no flashes, and walk straight into Wonderful's crosshair. And I mean that. Other than a cat cross smoke that they don't even use to get to boxes, they don't throw any more nades. I managed to catch this when I was going through the demo, but right before they start to push mid and before they get mowed down, Zershin looks like he's going to throw some kind of window smoke, maybe a connector smoke, from here outside of mid, but he doesn't do it. And then they decide to just dry swing it, and Wonderful hits the first shot, Emma gets the pick from window, and then JL finds the third player behind boxes in no man land. And they did it with the bomb. They just dry swung three players into mid for no discernible reason. I have no idea what the call was here. why there were no nades, no flashes, molotovs, nothing. You literally have all the utility to do something, and you just take a pub peek. And this round quite literally ends the game, in my opinion, because after this, Mouz have to save. They go for like a light buy on the next round, and then they're full saving the next because they're still broke. So this one mistake turns into 3 rounds for NAVI and ties the game up 11-11. And then we add on the heartbreak of Alexi B winning 2 1vx clutches to win the series. Flat out, if Mouz stick to standard protocols on this round, none of that happens. You don't have to worry about Alexi B clutching because again, you're on match point and Navi's broke. I don't understand it. I want someone in the comments to try and find a reason why they didn't throw any mid utility, because I can't think of one. It feels so oddly out of character for this team that I have praised over and over for how good they are at their tactics. Like, this makes no sense. It feels like this was a no call that Xerxin just went and then everyone decided to follow him into battle, and now we're stuck in a position where Mouz can't even be effective in this round. It's really genuinely weird. And of course, the Alexi clutches are just the cherry on top. Alexi had like 3 kills, and then he gets a double kill 1v2 clutch, and then wins the 1v1 against SHOUTOUT to end the series. And that's just, there's poetry there, because 3 of Alexi's kills in the entire game were the most impactful kills in the entire series for NAVI. And yet, NAVI are going through, we're getting the best grand final. I gotta clarify, you know, Mouz versus Vitality would have been sick, but NAVI versus Vitality feels like a battle for who's going to be the #1 team right now. And there's so many good narratives that are going to come out of that, with Alexi B trying to exercise his best of 5 demons, Zywoo and the gang trying to get their first title in this year. It's going to be an incredible finals tomorrow. But I can't help but linger on round 20, because Mouz played an incredible tournament. They really looked like they were starting to come into their own as a stage team and not be so nervous in the biggest moment. And then you look at this round and you're like, wait, no, they're not ready yet. Like, they still have some demons to overcome, because right here, this feels like not just a miscommunication, but nerves. Like, they think that they have to take this swing, but you don't. You guys don't play that style of Counter-Strike. It just seems, again, just so out of character for them to have done this, and you can look at it as the direct reason that they lost this game. Because yeah, the clutches are there, and you know, SHOUTOUT could have won against Alexi B and sent it to overtime, but again, I have to hammer this point home. They wouldn't have had to play those rounds if they just won round 20. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and speed through the outro because I'm tired and I want to upload this and I want to go to bed. Shout out to my channel members: Justin, Jesse, Furley, Bubblesj, Dr. Cocktor. If you want to become a channel member, check the link in the description down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. These videos are powered by advanced.gg. Check the link in the description down below. If you make a purchase, use my code LIONS10 at checkout for 10% off. Thank you to advanced.gg for helping me out so much. Other than that, guys, I'll see you soon. Tomorrow, grand finale in the Lanxess, the cathedral of Counter-Strike. I'm taking NAVI to beat Vitality. Let's see it happen. Peace.